essential training series for architects.
In this part of the course, we are going to talk about importing your design to SimLab Composer and how to adjust and apply materials to it. We have an empty scene here, and what we are going to do is go to the File tab and click Import. We have a SketchUp file. SimLab Composer supports importing a large number of 3D formats. If you click on the File Type drop-down menu, you can see the file type supported by SimLab Composer. Let's click on All Files and choose the file named arc_tutorial.skp and click Open. The Importing Options window will pop up. The up vector determines which 3D coordinate to set as your vertical coordinate. This may vary depending on the application that you imported your model from, but in most cases, Z is usually the most common one. The Scale and Center option is perfect for small models meant for simulations and presentations. Keep this unchecked while working with architecture. Zoom on imported model focuses your camera on the model. Keep Dynamic Link allows SimLab Composer to update the file in case you have made any changes to the scene with the designing application you have exported your model from. The Do Not Show Again for this file type saves the setting and applies them automatically once you import a model of the same type. Click OK to proceed. Importing is complete, and you can see the camera center is focusing on our scene. As you can notice, textures are applied to the objects. If we click on the grass, you can see a texture map assigned to the material. What SimLab Composer does is reads the textures related to any 3D file and applies the textures to its matching material upon importing. It also applies a default material, trying to simulate the original material assigned in the application you exported your model from. This generated material has an ambient, specular controls, an emission control, and a reflection map. Render to see the result without adjusting any materials. But first, make sure you have a light source in your scene. Go to Environment, Sun, and make sure it's enabled. When importing a file, SimLab Composer will apply the last settings you had in your previous Composer scene. I was working with those settings prior to making this tutorial, so the application kept those settings when I imported the file. Go to Render and click Real-Time Rendering. It doesn't look bad at all. It might need some minor tweaking, but the overall conversion of the materials is good. Select this chair and change the material type to plastic. I am going to keep the color as it is. Perhaps increase the reflection amount by increasing the ETA value a bit. I will also change the material type for this coffee table to plastic. Increase the roughness of the reflection. Notice that by changing the material of the chair, any other object sharing the same material would have its attributes adjusted as well. Press F4 on your keyboard to render the scene. The chair now looks good. The coffee table's color needs changing, so while it's rendering, just click on the coffee table and adjust the color and the reflection color. SimLab Composer will instantly apply the changes, which is a major advantage in using real-time rendering. Select the wooden floor. I can use a matte material for this with no reflection, but I'm assuming that it's slightly wet being next to a pool. Add subtle reflection by using the plastic material. You can see the sharp reflection right away. What you need to do is increase the roughness of the reflection. I am going to tilt the camera down slightly so you could see the effect better. Change the tiles material in the pool. Tiles are usually made of either porcelain or glass, either of which can be simulated by the plastic material. I'm going to change the color of the tiles. There's no need to open the texture file in an independent editor such as Photoshop. Clicking on the color and changing its surfaces prevents the original texture from being altered in case you need to change it back to its original color. I will also add bump to the material. Click on the small arrow under the texture to reveal the texture path. Select the path, and on your keyboard, press Ctrl and C to copy the path. Click on the bump arrow. Press Ctrl and V to paste the path, and enter on your keyboard to apply it. Increase the strength of the bump map to a value of 2. Looking at the water in the pool, it seems kind of dull. Click on it to see the material attributes assigned to it. Change the material type to thin glass. The thin glass material has the necessary attributes to simulate water surfaces. Once you select thin glass, you can see the look has greatly improved. Play with the colors and try to produce an aqua hue suitable for pool water. Increase the IOR, which is the index of refraction. Each material has a unique IOR that controls the angle at which it reflects and refracts light rays. It looks good, but perhaps adding some ripples would help more. Go to Bump and click on the empty thumbnail to add a bump map. Select this file. As you can see, it has a water ripple effect on it, which would make the water surface look more realistic. Increase the bump value to have a more vivid ripple effect. It looks more appealing to the eye now. Let's move on to the armchair. Set the material to matte, since you don't need any reflection on this object. There are no reflection controllers on the matte material, as you can see. You can change the color of the material and still be able to preserve the texture it has. I'm going to do the same for the sofa and adjust the colors to make it appear richer. The floor seems too plain, so I'm going to add some reflection to it. increase the ETA value, and the roughness on this material. We now have a subtle and smooth reflection on the floor. I'm going to zoom out and see how the scene looks. Let's tackle the building itself and see what we can improve. Go to the Scene Building tab and under Material, click on Show Materials. This will bring up the Scene Materials Manager. This window contains all the materials used in the scene. Click on the wall and notice how it automatically selects the corresponding material for that object. Press F4 on the keyboard to stop the real-time rendering. Right-click on the material and click on Select Objects Using Material. What this will do is apply a selection for all the objects that have the material wall assigned to them. This gives you a better realization of what the material is affecting. It also gives you the ability to perform any action on those objects, and you can apply a new material, hide them, isolate them, or even delete them, to name a few. Change the material type to matte, and as you noticed, there are no texture maps applied to the material. We won't be needing any. A solid color would be fitting for those walls. Render the scene. The glass doors are not behaving as they are supposed to. Change their material from default to thin glass. Change the material's color to white instead of gray. Let me zoom in a little. The glass is now behaving correctly, allowing light to go through it. And if you zoom out, you can see that it is actually reflecting light as well. But if you look closely, you might notice that additional light passing through the window would go a long ways in terms of appeal. To allow this, what we need to do is apply an opacity map on the glass material. This map has a very low value of brightness. It's not black, but rather a very dark gray. If you apply it, it would decrease the light absorption of the glass, allowing more light to penetrate this material. If you examine it closely, you will see that there is more light coming through the windows. Let me disable the opacity so that you can see the difference. I'm going to apply it again quickly. Select the side table and add some reflection. To be honest, the render engine does most of the job for us in terms of how the materials look and how the light and shadows interact. For architects, simply adjusting the reflection on most materials is enough to bring it to life. It has a nice smooth reflection now. Let's change the side lamp's material. The body already has a color. Increase the reflection amount to a very high value. And also increase the roughness to get a porcelain look. Click on the lamp's chimney. For this material type, it's advised to use a thin SSS, which is a subsurface scattering material. Turn the translucence color to orange, which is the color of the light seeping through the material. I'm going to increase the sigma as well, to increase the overall effect of translucency. This would look even better with a light emitting from it, which is what we will do as we go on in this tutorial. But for now, let's leave it at that. Another thing that can be done is changing the materials using the built-in material library in SimLab Composer. You can go through it and find a lot of pre-made materials that are perfect for architectural use. I'm going to apply a wool material to the armchair. Simply drag the material from the library and onto the object. You can see here that the pattern of the texture is quite large. Click on the arrow under the texture map and increase the U and V scale. Do the same for the bump map scale. What this is going to do is repeat the texture 3 times before applying it, resulting in having a pattern 1/3 the original size. It looks good from this distance, a very soft effect. Zoom into the chair so you can see the small pattern you have now. Experiment and find a material that you think looks best for this chair. Let's zoom out again and see what materials we can apply to the floor tiles. This one looks good, but the texture scale does not suit this area well. Let's fix that quickly. Go to the texture and increase the U and V scale, applying the same steps to the bump map. Let's take a look now at the materials inside the house. I have set up my interior lights as I explained in the previous tutorial, and it's ready to be rendered. Select the sofa inside the house and press Ctrl-J on your keyboard to zoom into the sofa. Also, click on Active Camera to select the camera you are looking through and increase the field of view. Press 4 to render the scene. It looks flat and needs some work. Pick the floor and give it a light orange tint. and increase the roughness so it won't look very smooth. The same goes for the steps to the right. Let's click on the sofa and try a matte material. Copy the texture path and paste it on the bump map path. Try a velvet material. Change the color to a light beige color and the horizon scattering to an orange color. Increase the fall-off and the back scattering. Let's move to the white vases. Go with a metal material this time, and notice how several objects' appearances have changed, due to sharing the same material with the vases. Increase the roughness for this material to blur the reflection a bit. Change the reflected color of this material. You can also use a Composer pre-made material that I can find in the library. Drag and drop the chrome material to the object. This will apply the chrome material to this object and affect all the objects sharing that material. Blur the reflection slightly by increasing the roughness. The coffee table should be transparent, while right now it looks opaque. Click on it and change the material type to glass. Set the material for the rug to a matte material. And the glasses on the coffee table to thin glass. Add some reflection to the books. And change this urn's material to a matte material. Experiment with the sofa a little bit, and set it to a reflective material and see how that looks. Let's move to the other room and see how things look in there. Add some reflections to the materials. And change the material for this object to mirror. It will give you a clear and sharp reflection as mirrors do. Change the wall to a matte material. I will give it some time to render. As you can see, that side lamp is looking better with a light inside it. What I did here is added a sphere object and assigned an emitter material to it. This guarantees good lighting and that the shape of the light source appears clearly.